welcome everybody to the Broward Progressive Coalition and Broward Young Black Progressives All Candidates Roundtable for Criminal Justice Reform. Today is Juneteenth, right? Freedom Day or Emancipation Day, a holiday that commemorates when news of the end of slavery reached the far corners of the former Confederacy. It's celebrated to this day as a way to unite the community, recognize accomplishments, and even more importantly, as witnessed by the events of the last few weeks, to identify and fight for the rights still yet to be achieved. Also, candidates for sheriff Al Pollack and Willie Jones had originally been scheduled to participate in a forum on the 12th. That forum was rescheduled for tonight, and they will not be able to participate with us here. They've been rescheduled for July 24th. So what we've done is we've brought together candidates for the state attorney's office, candidates for public defender, and the clerk of courts to share among themselves and the viewing audience their visions for a more fair and equitable justice system, what role each office has in that vision, and how they might work together to accomplish common goals. We will split the candidates up into two teams of three, with one candidate from each office. We'll ask the same question of both teams. While Team 1 is answering the question spontaneously, Team 2 will go to a breakout room for private discussion. After 10 minutes, Team 2 will return to answer the question for the audience. Teams will take turns going first. Now, we can't really dictate what our candidates do in the breakout room, but we do hope that they'll discuss among themselves and try to find solutions to the problems. And just to keep it fresh, we're going to switch one candidate out at the end of each round so everyone has the chance to work with each other. So in addition to the possibility of finding solutions for reform, it's our assertion that by providing space for dialogue, we can learn a lot about a candidate's aptitude for the office they are seeking. Do they interact with peers, listen with empathy, disagree respectfully, contribute meaningfully, articulate spontaneously, encourage others, follow directions, and work well in a team? We are hoping that over the course of the evening, the natural leaders will shine through. And now I will introduce to you our special guest moderator who will take it the rest of the way. Moderating tonight is noted author, activist, and community leader Wayne E. Rollins. A champion of criminal justice reform for decades, Wayne's work has been highlighted in both national and international conferences and publications. He received the Director's Community Leadership Award from the Federal Bureau of Investigations in Washington, D.C. From 1995 to the present, Wayne Rollins has served South Florida in many, many ways. As the Executive Director of Opportunities Industrialization Center, Wayne increased job placement rates for ex-felons from 22% to over 90%. Mr. Rollins was the lead executive consultant for Project Safe Neighborhoods, a law enforcement and human services coalition that included over 200 agencies working together to reduce gun and gang violence in our region. He also co-authored Planning for Reentry, the 2004 South Florida Reentry Summit, which was used by the White House as a tool for developing comprehensive multi-agency ex-offender reentry plans. Wayne was later appointed by former Florida Governor Jeb Bush to serve on the governor's ex-offender task force, which at the time was a vanguard for unprecedented policy changes in reentry. Currently, Mr. Rollins is the project manager for Miami-Dade County's Anti-Violence Initiative, a 4-year, $7 million strategy that includes group violence intervention and the nationally acclaimed Walking One Stop, which has shifted the paradigm on how services are delivered to Miami-Dade's most challenged neighborhoods. Wayne is also the director of South Florida Reentry Task Force, working closely with Desmond Meade, the powerhouse behind the passage of Amendment 4. And finally, Mr. Rollins draws on his long, diverse list of accomplishment, skills, and experiences to perform his role as president of UMA Futures International, a strategic planning consultant assisting rural and urban communities nationwide in the development, implementation, and evaluation of successful community revitalization projects. It is our great privilege and my great honor to introduce you to tonight's moderator and my friend, Mr. Wayne E. Rollins.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate you. I appreciate the invitation, and much respect to all of the candidates today that have given so much of their time and public service to this community and to this country. And we appreciate all your hard work, and we're looking forward to hearing from you at a time where we as a nation are rethinking criminal justice and public safety and how to achieve public safety. So we'll start off tonight with candidate introductions. You'll each have 2 minutes to tell us who you are, what office you're running for, and why you're the best candidate for the job. When you see Carolina in the corner, flash the 10 seconds card. Please wrap it up so we can move on. Let's start in alphabetical order with candidates for Clerk of the Court: Paul Blackman, Brenda Foreman, and then Public Defender Ruby Lenore Green, then Tom Lynch, State Attorney Justin McCormick, then Harold Pryor.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. As I said to Jamie earlier, this is a very unique way of bringing out different issues and different solutions in a way that isn't being done every single night on every single forum that we all attend. My name is Paul Backman. I am a retired circuit court judge. I served on the circuit court bench for a period of 34 years. I've been very active in the community since I arrived out of law school from Chicago in 1975. My kids have grown up here. My grandchildren are growing up here in South Carolina. In fact, we just had our 9th grandchild 2 days ago. So the girls out is 6-3. And I don't think there's ever going to be a catch up. But I'm running for this office because it's time to modernize to a point in light of COVID that has taught us that we can function in a very different way, which 10 years ago we would have believed was futuristic. I think that it's very possible, and I think the money is there and the personnel to basically make the clerk's office one. With the exception of an emergency, people should not have to come down, find parking, and take time away from their jobs if and when they get the opportunity to have their jobs back. I also hope that everybody is safe, everybody's healthy. But the reality is it's time for new leadership. The same leadership has been in there for years. The morale has sunk to an all-time low. The method by which people are working with the clerk's office is one which, in light of brand new constitutional officers that are coming into every single office, with the exception of the, I see Jamie with the time, with the exception of the property appraiser, all have to be people that can work in concert with each other for the betterment of the system.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Criminal Justice Roundtable, for inviting me on this Zoom interview. I pray that you and your families are safe during this COVID-19 for the uncertainty, and it keeps going and it keeps going. We don't even know when it's going to stop. But I'm honored to have served as your Broward County Clerk of Courts for the last 4 years. This is my first term. I have not been there for 16 years or 20 years or 32 years. Looking forward to serving Broward County another 4+ years. My role as your current Clerk of Courts has been and will continue to be a facilitator among all the stakeholders within the court system. We are all in this together. For the last 16 years, I have been a licensed real estate agent. And from 2005 to 2009, I owned my own mortgage company. Prior to that, I went to Broward College, Union Institute. I am a Florida certified clerk of courts for Broward County, in which upon coming to new clerk, each clerk that comes into being a clerk, you have to take 260 to 360 hours to be certified. Each year after that, you have to take 36 continuing hours to continue to be a clerk. Since being sworn in on January 3rd, 2017, I have made significant changes and much needed improvements from the past clerks, including technology upgrades, artificial intelligence, so that our services are more accessible to the public. Our upgraded technologies has provided customers with ways of paying their traffic citation, court fees, fines, and they are able to access information on cases. Our customer service is great and it has always been great under me. As far as the morale in the office, it has been fantastic. They are also able to pay their tickets at AMSCOT, and there's certain fees and fines that they can pay at AMSCOT. I have also spearheaded a community outreach service project that has allowed my office to donate thousands of dollars to local charities. It is not clerk dollars. These are dollars that are raised to help provide for the community. And most of the clerks throughout the 67 counties do this as well. My goal as the Clerk of Courts is to continue to deliver superior services to my customers by providing quality record keeping. Thank you. I'm asking everyone for your vote. Brenda D. Foreman, Clerk of Courts.
Thank you. Next up, Public Defender, Ruby Lenore Green, and then Tom Lynch.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Ruby Lenore Green. I pray that you all are well. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. I am currently running for Broward County Public Defender. I am from Broward County. I'm a mother of a fabulous 13-year-old. I went to school at FSU. I'm one of 15 siblings. I'm the only one to actually graduate from college. I've been a document signer in my mom's household since I was in the second grade. She had to leave school early because she had to make a living picking beans, cottons, and strawberries in the fields. So I had to pick up the slack. I've been working at the public defender's office, actually at a public defender's office since 2009. I started at the public defender's office when I was in law school in Jacksonville. And I was an intern, a certified legal intern. And then I was hired by that office practicing in the Jimmy Rice Civil Division. And then I moved here to Broward County, and I've been in here at the Public Defender's Office ever since. I work there. I'm currently in the Career Criminal Unit. I've been a supervisor and a chief at the Broward County Public Defender's Office. And at this point in time, and we know this, and we've seen everything that has been going on, we know that there is change that is needed in the criminal justice system, especially when it comes to the public defender's office. We need fresh new eyes. We need new beginning. We need a criminal justice system that's actually going to work for us all. That means making sure that when clients are going in and out of custody, they have access to resources such as jobs, schooling, homes, so that they don't recidivate. And we also need to boost our office morale. So vote green for change to be seen. I saw the time.
All right, Tom Lynch.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for putting this together. I think it's very important for our community to learn as much as possible about all the, I think this will be helpful. It's a new format, and we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to trying it. My name is Tom Lynch. I'm a former circuit judge. I was born and raised in Broward County. I was born in Broward General, raised in Hollywood, still live in Hollywood. I went to law school in Hollywood as well, law school in Broward as well. And after law school, I was hired by the Public Defender's Office. Within 2 years, I was chief assistant of the Public Defender's Office. I was chief of the juvenile division, the misdemeanor division, the interns, and mental health, while carrying a full load of capital cases. I tried 90 jury trials in 4 years, including 12 death penalty cases by myself. The reason I'm running is I heard that Howard Finkelstein decided not to run, and I figured we need a change. The importance of the Public Defender's Office to me was tremendous. I had great training there, and they need some assistance in the training, and I've got many of the top criminal defense attorneys ready to and willing to train the attorneys at the Public Defender's Office. They need the training. And I also am out of time. Thank you.
And our candidate for state attorney, Justin McCormick, and then
Yes.
Harold Pryor.
Thank you. My name is Justin McCormack. I'm running for state attorney. I am a progressive prosecutor, and I'm in this race to bring criminal justice reform to Broward County. And I'm excited that that's what we're talking about tonight, is criminal justice reform. I moved to Broward when I was 13 from Queens, New York City. And I lived here until I went to college at the University of Florida. I went to law school at the University of Florida. And while in law school, I clerked for Legal Aid Society, representing indigent defendants. And then for the Alachua County Public Defender's Office, where I also represented indigent defendants. And I realized very quickly how much power the prosecutor had. And so later on in my career, when I could afford to go back to public service, I decided to become a prosecutor so I could help more people, basically. I became an assistant district attorney in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was there with my wife while she was doing her emergency medicine pediatric training. When she completed, we came back to Broward, and I became an assistant state attorney. since I've been here in Broward, I'd like to say I've been going against the grain and working to be a more fair, just prosecutor for everybody. I've been trying to get justice for victims as well as justice for the accused and for defendants. I am now in the public corruption unit, where I prosecute police brutality, excessive use of force, corrupt politicians, dishonest lawyers, and things of that nature. And I'm running to change the criminal justice system from the inside out. There's been this movement going on throughout the country for the past 5 or so years, this progressive prosecutor movement. I've studied the movement going back to Marilyn Mosby and Larry Krasner and Rachel Rollins. And I'm ready to bring that type of change here to Broward County, and I'm asking for your vote to allow me to do that. You elect me, a change will come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next up, Harold Pryor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you to members of the Democratic Progressive Caucus and everyone in their respective places on here. Ruby, Judge Bagman, Tom Lynch, and also Ms. Foreman. Thank you so much, and Justin McCormick. My name's Harold Pryor. I'm going to be your next state attorney. I'm a proud husband. I'm a proud father. I'm a proud attorney, but also I'm a proud Black man. Growing up, I experienced or viewed the criminal justice system from so many different vantage points. I had family members who had mental health issues and drug addiction issues, and we saw that their lives spiraled down. We saw that the criminal justice system treated them less than. But also I experienced the criminal justice system from having family members and close friends brutally murdered. And we saw the justice system treat them less than because of the color of their skin. But also I've experienced the criminal justice system as a prosecutor who tried misdemeanor cases all the way to serious felony offenses. I'm also a father to a young 2-year-old Black son. And my wife and I worry every day, how are we going to raise our son in this dangerous world? I have 5 generations of family that grew up here in Florida and Black men that grew up in Florida. And we've had that conversation of how you interact with law enforcement or people of authority when you do come in contact with them. And unfortunately, I grow up in a world where I have to bring my son up in that, and I have to have that discussion with him. I'm running to institute real ground level criminal justice reform while not compromising the safety of our communities. I truly believe that we can do that by not prosecuting low-level drug offenses, by not prosecuting those with mental health issues, by actually having a state attorney's office that reflects the community that it serves. I truly believe that we can vigorously prosecute those public officials that would violate our trust. I truly believe the time is now, and I am the person for that job. And I look forward to work with all of the stakeholders in the criminal justice system and in Broward County to ensure that change. Thank you, and I look forward to interacting with everyone, and I will remove my background. I was just leaving another form, so I do apologize.
Thank you very much. And you know, we're all very excited about this format, so let's jump right into round one. Question number 1 is a softball that, if hit well, will help our audience understand the role of each office in the execution of justice. It may also enlighten candidates as to the expectations of their peers. As we go around the virtual roundtable, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to highlight what they feel are the most important aspects of the question. After each candidate has had a turn, we will open the floor to additional 1-minute comments if any candidates are so inclined. You will notice that 4 of you have an invitation to enter the breakout room. When I have finished speaking and asking the question, please accept that invitation. You will automatically be returned after 10 minutes so you can answer the question for our audience. Here we go. You will have 1.5 minutes, so answer the parts that are most important to you. We know that these offices within the criminal justice system are mostly administrative. If elected, your job is to enforce laws created by the state with little room for discretion. At what part of the criminal justice process do you see the most injustice, dysfunction, or ineptness? What do you see as the biggest hurdle to reform? Will you use your platform to advocate for reform locally and at the state level? Candidates with invitations, please accept them now. And we'll start with the candidate for state attorney, then public defender, and then clerk of the courts. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. That's a thoughtful question. And there's so much to begin with. Let's start with one, how we deal with or how we prosecute law enforcement officers. I think that's one of the most grave injustices that we've experienced, not only in Broward County, but throughout the country. I mean, look at the news. I truly believe that we have to have a state attorney's office that's independent from the law enforcement agencies. That doesn't mean we don't work with them. We have to work with them. We have to have a collaborative effort in vigorously prosecuting some of the more violent crimes and serious crimes in this circuit. But I truly believe that just because an individual, just because a man or a woman has a badge on, we should not treat them differently. Any issue less than a first-degree murder, which by statute we have to submit to a grand jury, we won't submit those cases to a grand jury. We will make those decisions in an open and transparent process, where I, as a state attorney, would be subject to criticism. The moment I decide to bring charges against a law enforcement officer, I'll have to hear from the police unions. The moment that I decide not to bring charges against a law enforcement officer, I'm going to have to hear from our communities and activist groups. And so I truly believe in any institution, in any criminal justice institution that's dealing with criminal justice, we have to have an open and transparent process, and we have to be open to criticism from the citizens.
We know that race does play a huge issue when it comes to policing. We know that communities of color have been over criminalized. And in fact, the people of color have been arrested at disproportionate rates, right? So that in and of itself is an issue that we need to address when it comes to policing. When it comes to the state attorney's office, making sure that they have state attorneys that understand that people don't always come from where, you know, with a silver spoon or was raised with a silver spoon in their mouth, right? That we all come from different types of backgrounds and have different types of issues, mental illnesses, substance abuse issues. At the public defender's office, the ways that I can help is going to advocate for funding. We need zealous advocates at the public defender's office. We don't have the funding that's necessary in order to keep our experienced attorneys. We have attorneys that are working at the public defender's office in some of the courtrooms who have not had their own felony trials, but they're lead attorneys. So we need to make sure that we are focusing on making sure that we can represent our community. And the community, let's be real, are afraid of public defenders. They call us public pretenders. They don't believe that we're real lawyers. So we need to change the way that the community and, you know, the nation and, you know, the outside world, what they view public defenders as. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Paul.
That puts me in a very interesting position. If I were running for public defender or state attorney, I would have one position. If I were running for the bench, I would have a neutral position, but I'm running for clerk. Where can the clerk come into all of this? The paperwork, everything that is handled, especially in light of Amendment 4, and the difficulties that individuals who are felons, who are seeking the right to vote, as the 68% of the population in 2018 decided that they should. I've maintained in every forum where I've been asked that question, that irrespective of the fact that the case is still on appeal, that they should take the opportunity, they should register, and they should be ready and able to vote. However, in order for that to be accomplished, you have to make sure that in the courtrooms and in the offices, that all the paperwork is correct, that it can be helpful to them. Is there racial inequality in this world? You bet. Is there anti-Semitism in this world? Yes. And we have to all, as one, come together. We have to be able to get to root causes, which isn't easy. This is a systemic issue that has to be addressed, and with new constitutional officers, a new public defender, a new sheriff, a new state attorney, and a new clerk, you have the opportunity, working with the judges, to be able to effectuate change that brings us forward, not backward.
I didn't put this in the notes, so I just wanted to add that everybody now has an opportunity to make an additional comment.
Got it.
No, I agree that, it's gonna really take a criminal justice system. And when I say criminal justice system, I mean the key players, the state attorneys, just like Mr. Backman said, the state attorneys, the public defender, the clerk, some judges. We all need to work together, even some police departments, because we need to get to the bottom of it. We need to get to the bottom of, what they're doing in order to safeguard and do what they need to do in order to move forward and create criminal justice reform in their policing practices. So it's gonna take a while. I don't think it's gonna happen overnight, but if we work together, I believe it can be done.
I piggyback off that. I think it's a travesty and it's a shame, outright shame, that the relationship between the public defender and the state attorney's office isn't great. It should be much better. As state attorney, I should be able to pick up the phone and call Ruby and text Ruby at any time, and us to sit down and talk about issues and not have that stonewall. I feel often there's posturing between the two offices. The first time that they hear something from each other, it's a letter. It's a war of letters. No one ever talks. It's, oh, you said this, and it's like they've taken it back to the 17th century, right? And you have a phone, you have a smartphone, you even have email. Let's develop that. Let's develop that relationship there, the lines of communication, and I think that's how we can change the system. I truly believe that.
Here's my perspective on that. I think Ruby hit it, and I think Harold hit it, and I think everybody's going to hit it. In order to effectuate change, the public has to have trust in their elected offices. When you have new people, and I'll tell you, I know every single person that is running for every single position, and I can work with each and every one. It's a collaborative effort. As a judge, I did not like an awful lot of the policies in either the state's or the PD's office, but they weren't my policies. I'm not running for those offices. I'm running to see that we can put together teamwork. We don't have to agree with each other, but we can be agreeable in the way in which we go about trying to find resolutions. And I think that is critical.
Buddy, we're going to bring the candidates back in, Jim.
They're in.
We're here. We're in the house.
All right, our beautiful. Welcome back.
So we had a nice little discussion. I'm going to start with hurdles to reform. I would like, so part of my criminal justice reform plan is to focus on keeping people out of the system. And we know that most of the people that come into the system that are in our jails have mental health issues or substance abuse issues or suffer from poverty. And I'd like to help get those issues addressed so we don't continue with this cycle of addiction and incarceration or poverty and incarceration. And a hurdle that I will have, or a hurdle that we'll face in addressing that, is the finances for setting all that up and for getting them the treatment that they need. Within our office, we're going to need to have additional staff to handle our diversion programs. I want to add to our diversion program and expand on that. We're going to need additional staff to do that. And throughout the county, to get people the counseling that they need, the mental health treatment that they need, the resources they need for education, job training, and things of that nature. It's something we're going to have to work together on and find ways where we can make it happen and come up with the money. We don't have enough mental health treatment facilities available right now. I have a case where I'm handling right now. The gentleman, he needs mental health treatment. He doesn't need to be in prison where he was. He came out, he was on probation. He violated because he hasn't received the treatment he needs, and I'm trying to help him get that, but he can't get it based on his criminal history.
All right, the clerk of the courts, we are not enforcers of the law, any laws. We are record keepers. We are collector of fees, fines, and collections. When I came into the office as being the clerk of the court, there was rumors that the public defender's office didn't get along with the clerk's office. Public defender's office didn't get along with the state attorney's office. I am the type of person that likes to bring people together. I am not author of confusion, and I don't like confusion. So I work with all agencies, and I have always worked with the agencies. So we have to stay neutral. We have statutory duties that the clerk's office have to do. So by me being the clerk of the court, we do work with the judiciary, public defender's office, the state attorney's office. There are things that they want us to do that we can't do as being the clerk of the court, but we try to make sure that whatever is happening and whatever they want us to do is within our statutory duties that we have to do it. There's ministerial duties and whatever. So we have to be so careful because we are governed by the state of Florida, which is the Florida Clerks and Controllers Corporation. So we have to follow the constitutions and the statutes that is given to the clerks of the court. We just can't walk in there and just say, hey, we're going to do this and do that, because we are not, and we cannot enforce any laws. And since I've been in office, like I said, I get along with everybody. Other people may not want to get along with me, but I get along with everybody. It's just that I have certain laws and statutes that I have to follow.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and mute Tom, and you guys can go back around. Does anybody want to add some comment for, to this last question? What we were looking for, to be specific, was what do you find is the biggest problem or the biggest impediment to reform, or where is the most dysfunctional part of the system?
Amy,
Go ahead,
I'd
Brenda.
also like to say that there have been times that other people have asked the clerk's office to do things that were illegal to do. And I will not do anything illegal that will get me into trouble. And I stay, firm, and I stay strong, because being honest is always number one, because when you start doing things that's honest, believe me, it comes back and it grabs you in the butt. And when it grabs you, you're going to be wondering like, whoa, what done happened? So my office and myself, we stay honest. We stay on top of things. We do not do anything dishonest. We do not go outside the realm of anything that's going to get the clerk's office into trouble.
Got you. Anybody have something to add about where you see the biggest dysfunction or impediment to reform?
An impediment to reform, Jamie, is that things have been done a certain way for a long time now. And to get this whole system to change with all its different parts is going to take cooperation. And people don't like to change. They like the way they've been doing things. And you might talk to a judge and he'll say, well, this is the way it's been. This is the way we've been doing it here for the past whatever, since as long as I've been here, or the past 20 years or 30 years. So to get everybody on board with the change is going to be difficult. There's going to be obstacles and roadblocks in the way. And I'm with the state attorney's office now, and the office has had the same state attorney for 44 years. And people that have been there a long time, have learned the ways that they do things. And a lot of people may be stuck in their ways. So it's going to be a lot of work to change the mindset and change the culture and get everybody thinking in a different way.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Remember, candidates, you will have a minute and a half, so answer the parts that are most important to you. Here we go. By state standards, Broward County has the highest rate of wrongful convictions on death row, one of the highest rates of incarceration per capita, one of the lowest rates of convictions at trial, the highest rate of direct filing for youthful offenders, highly disproportionate arrests and prosecution of Black and brown people, as well as unrealistic and crippling economic demands that impoverish our citizens and cripple entire communities. This is an indictment of Broward's entire criminal justice system, a system in which many of you have been complicit for years, many years, and for some who lack any other professional frame of reference, it is the only system you know. Our community is demanding change, real change, in every department at every level. So please tell us, why should we consider voting for any candidate who has enabled the system of injustice for so long? How can anyone make meaningful changes in criminal justice if they've never been a part of a system that is just? If we want real change, we should vote for the status quo or a candidate who is funded and endorsed by the status quo. We'll start with the state attorney, the clerk of the court, and then the public defender.
All right, candidates with the invitation, please go to the breakout room. Well, you got to take your invitation. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so Justin McCormack, candidate for state attorney. I can assure you that I am not complicit in the justice system that you were describing. As I mentioned earlier, Wayne, where are you? I can't see you. Oh, there you are. Okay. I was a civil plaintiff's attorney for 6 years before I came back to public service. I have my first criminal experience as a public defender in Suffolk County, and then as an assistant, and then in Alachua County with the Public Defender's Office. And then I was assistant district attorney in Pittsburgh. And while I've been here at the state attorney's office, I have always done what I think is fair and just in my heart. No defendant has ever received an unfair or unjust resolution in a case that I've handled. And you could ask any defense attorney in Broward County, you could ask anybody who works for the state attorney's office, you could ask any judge on the bench if I've ever done anything or ever resolved any case that seemed unfair or unreasonable. You could read my platform and you'll learn about every different part that I plan to change. I have detailed plans on my website. When I came to the office in the very beginning, I thought I was in some kind of bizarro world because of the way cases were handled and resolved and how much that's backwards for me. It says, please finish. Okay, how difficult it was to resolve cases. And that's why I'm running for state attorney. That's why I'm here. And I know how the system works because I've been in it in many different jurisdictions and different offices, and I know how to change it. I know what strings to pull and how things affect each other. That's why I'm the best candidate in this race, to be frank.
I want nothing to, that's to me, correct? I want nothing to do with the status quo. We absolutely 100% need a change. And as it relates to the public defender's office, my campaign has been indicating a number of things. Number one, I'm going to make sure all supervisors and all chief assistants have a caseload. Right now, most of them do not have a caseload, and they don't have they don't have a caseload, and they won't have an opportunity to assist the other lawyers either because the training is lacking. Everyone's going to have cases, including myself. The training is going to be tremendous, and that will assist quite a bit in the morale issue. Too many people are leaving the public defender's office, and by equalizing the caseload and training the public defenders in a better fashion, it will absolutely 100% change things. We need a change. I'm going to hit the ground running, and there's also not going to be a war between the public defender's office, state attorney's office, police agencies, and the judges. Not going to happen. Cooperation can be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anders?
Yes. Okay. Once again, the clerk's office, we're just collector of fees and fines. But I'm going to speak on a personal level, Wayne. I was born and raised in Alabama, and I came up in the late 50s and 60s. And I saw a lot that went on against the Black and brown people in Alabama. I grew up in it. I saw it. Uncles, cousins, nephews, whatever the case may be. I'm totally against sending those to prison that do not deserve to go to prison. So I'm going to stand on just my personal opinion on that I dislike it. And if I was on the public defender side or the state attorney side, I would actually do what is best for all races. Fair is fair. So being the clerk of the court, we're just going to stay there, and we're going to continue to collect the fees, fines, and whatever we have to do, and stick by the judicial system to make sure that all of the records that are given to us that are filed correctly.
Yeah, Brenda, let me ask you something though. But people not having the option to be pulled from collections, which most other counties in Florida do, this affects primarily driving privileges as well as economic hardships. The clerk could negotiate a new contract, could they not?
Yes. If something has gone into collections and they come to the clerk's office and they want to go on a payment plan, I will pull it from collection. I will waive the 35% fee that the collection agency charges. We will put them on a payment plan, or if they want to pay it in full, they can pay it in full. So yes, I do work with all of the people that come in and they have a problem or issue with their driver's license.
Okay, thank you.
Says, are any candidates planning to provide implicit bias training on day one when elected? And I could answer that in the affirmative. I will. I've been through implicit bias training. I found it very informative and very helpful. And I think it could be helpful to everybody, but especially prosecutors, and not just on a one-time basis, something that is a continuation. It's very important because implicit bias, we all have implicit biases, and you're not aware of them, which is why they're implicit. So training is great to help make you aware of them as best as you can be.
All right, thank you, Justin. We're going to save that question for later. We're going to give Team B an opportunity to answer the question that Team A did. So let's go ahead and start with the state attorney, Harold Pryor.
Yes, thank you. That question is thoughtful in the sense that, given the criminal justice system and all of us are actors in it, I truly believe you can't be state attorney for any county, circuit, district, what have you, if you don't understand that we have a criminal justice system that has been traditionally stacked against people of color and poor folk. That's the first starting point there. Secondly, I think you have to have a state attorney that kind of understands what's going on and how it affects different demographics. As I alluded to earlier, I grew up in a rather rough neighborhood. I had family members who were in and out of the criminal justice system. My family, extended family as well, was decimated by the crack laws, the crack sentencing disparities between crack and powder cocaine. I have family members that were just recently released from federal custody. They served a state bid and also a federal bid, all because of crack cocaine. We saw the war on drugs affect my friend's family, my friends, my family members negatively. The reason why I became a state attorney, and to be honest, I really wanted to be a public defender when I went to law school. But then I had a trial advocacy professor talk to me and said, Harold, we have a lot of great public defenders. You can do a lot of great work, but we need more people that look like you, but not only look like you, that understand the demographics that they're serving. There's an inequity issue in the criminal justice system. I was proud to serve as a state attorney. I was proud to provide that equity in some of the issues that we were dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so I truly believe we have to have a state attorney's office that's diverse, that reflects the community that it serves, and we need conviction integrity units that reviews these cases regarding the sentencing and wrongful convictions. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Ruby?
Yes. So I have actually put on implicit bias trainings and events through the Theoretic Bar Association. I am currently a member. I'm the community post chair. We need criminal justice advocates and pillars in the community that are willing to address the underlying societal views, structures, and indoctrination of all of the issues that are allowing for disparate treatment of people of color. Florida has the highest rates of wrongful convictions. Broward County, #1 in Florida for wrongful convictions. Yes, we are demanding change, and we're demanding change right now. I have no problem with going against the grain and going against the status quo. We need to get the institutionalization out of there. We don't need no more institutions coming up in here saying this is what it's going to be. We're going to continue the way that it has been, done. We don't need that anymore. The nation is crying. They're begging for change. They're begging for criminal justice reform. And that means no more sentencing disparities. We don't need situations where we're going to court and then someone who is, white and privileged, maybe rich, is getting a better sentence on the same crime that a defendant who is poor or come from the inner city is getting 3 times as much as a sentence. We don't need that anymore. We're realizing that these things are happening, and they've been happening, but now we're putting our foot down and we're making a difference by protesting. And we're going out there and making sure that people understand what is going on in the system. Now we have video cameras. We have cell phones. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. Paul.
On that last part, you would think that people are smart enough to know that they're being videoed no matter where they are and no matter what they're doing. But that shows you the mindset of where individuals within our society are when they totally ignore that. But for our time in our private chat room, the three of us had an opportunity to discuss all of what we're talking about. And we all tended to agree that trust in elected offices is critical. The ability to work in concert. You can disagree, but you can disagree agreeably. And it doesn't have to be an us versus them. You know, the pogo quote, you know, I have seen the enemy, and it's us. We're our own enemy. We can work internally. We have to learn to work with the legislature. It is a very difficult legislature right now. You saw what they did with Amendment 4. You've seen what they've done with every other amendment that they don't like, that citizen initiative. And it just has to be done, but it's a cooperative. It's not a matter of, am I the clerk? Am I the prosecutor? Am I the judge? Ruby will tell you, because she was in my courtroom for quite a while, tried cases with me. Everyone, it's an adversarial system, but adversarial doesn't mean that you have to rip somebody's throat apart. You can talk to each other. You can disagree with each other as long as you're professional. And when it comes to professionalism, I have taught it to judges. I have taught ethics to many groups, and I will stop on that T.
Thank you. Does anybody have an additional comment they'd like to make in regards to tenured people in this system? The question again was, why would we vote for the status quo when the status quo is the last that we want? And it maybe doesn't pertain to this audience, this panel, as much as it might to some others. So I do appreciate y'all reflecting on that question as well.
I disagree with you on that, Jamie. It does reflect on each and every one of us here. I've always maintained that incumbents that do good jobs should really be given the opportunity to continue to do that. Incumbents that aren't doing a good job should always be challenged. If you look at our judiciary, and I was part of that look, we're all prima donnas. We all had our own idiosyncrasies, but there are good judges and there are bad judges. There are good law enforcement officers and there are bad law enforcement officers. But until we're willing to challenge the status quo, and by that, I mean, if you know that somebody is bad, if you've got the community should come around and support somebody who can do a better job.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I just want to touch about one more thing from the last question. A wrongful conviction is one of the worst things that can happen to anybody. And, my goal would be for that to never happen anywhere in the country, in the world. And, as state attorney, I'll make sure that we do what's right and try to do what's fair and get a just result. We're not going to be a convictions at all costs office. The goal is not to win. The goal is to seek justice. And anytime there's a wrongful conviction, it's terrible.
All right, thank you.
Yep. These tragedies involving the harassment, torture, and murder of Black and brown people by police all around the country show no signs of abating. Every day we see new and more disturbing videos of police with no regard for Black lives or human dignity, blind loyalty from the unions and fellow officers, and criminal justice system that routinely fails to hold these officers accountable. Would you support federalizing murder by state actors? Do you support prosecuting not only perpetrators, but also police bystanders of the incidents involving police brutality? What would you do to encourage intervention by police officers to prevent fellow officers from perpetrating acts of brutality and violence against citizens? You have a minute and a half, so answer the parts that are most important to you, and you will have another minute to follow up. We'll start with the public defender, clerk of the court, and then state attorney.
And if you have an invitation to the breakout room, please go.
That's okay. We've had so many historic injustices, and it has spilled over, right, into you know, everything that we're seeing today, you know, as I stated, as I was trying to say, that we have video cameras that has been capturing this, but the Black community has been feeling this for centuries. I think that we need to go after police officers and their bystanders that are actually perpetrating and doing certain crimes against peoples of color. It makes sense. You know, they say that a system cannot fail those it was never built to protect. We need to change that system because it was never built to protect people of color, people who are indigent, in which I represent. It was never built for them. And so when we have practices and we're having officers who get off, they commit a crime against somebody, you know, a hate crime at that, they get off, you know, that's why we're at the stage in which we are at right now, because people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they see what's going on, and we can't do this anymore. Police officers need to be prosecuted. They should not have immunity whatsoever when they commit a crime.
So Paul was mentioning earlier how you know, how there are video cameras and this type of activity still goes on, and that's because the perpetrators of this activity, they don't care. They know there are cameras, they know there's people watching, but it's their mindset that they're going to do what they want. And so that's why you continue to see these types of activities on camera. And, you know, these were going on obviously before they were camera, and now they're continuing to go on. Do I support was the question, do I support federalizing murder charge for police officers? Was that accurate, the first part of your question?
Yes.
Yep.
Mr. Rollins?
I'll read it for you. I can read it again for you. Would you support federalizing murder by state actors?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And the other part of the question was about colleagues not speaking up, right?
Yes, that is correct. In terms of, do you support prosecuting not only perpetrators, but also police bystanders of incidents involving police brutality?
Absolutely. And I was reading earlier today that Colorado just passed sweeping criminal justice reform or police reform laws that that specifically address what you just mentioned about bystanders not doing anything. And as we saw in Minneapolis, that, you know, if one of them had intervened, that man would still be alive today, and they hadn't. They actually, you know, got in on it. So yes, I would support legislation like that. And as state attorney, I would advocate for legislation that I think would be beneficial for our citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul?
You know, Santiana back in the 1890s made a comment that those of us that are forget the lessons of history are bound to repeat them. And we are at that breaking point in this country right now. It is obvious, whether it is a civil war in the sense of what we've seen in the past, whether it's the haves versus the haves not, when you have government that doesn't respect its people, and government is supposed to be one that goes towards the least capable to make it one where they are equal with everyone else. I want to say amen to what both Justin and what Ruby said. This is systemic. It goes back to training. But you can't take an individual who was born into a type of family and a system where they are taught hate from the very first time they have an understanding of what they say. Breaking that cycle requires all of us to act. On the issue of federalizing murder from police officers, absolutely. Somebody has to take the bull by the horn, and when the blue wall comes up, Atlanta's a perfect example, they're all calling in sick. The responsibility is to the public, and let the judicial system work out whether there's a problem. I see it, Carol. All right, I'm done.
Thank you. Anybody have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to add that criminalizing any acts of violence just because someone is of color, I think is definitely the way to go, because it will give them the mindset like, I need to think twice about what I'm doing before I do it. So think before you act type situation. So it just makes sense. And we're in a time now where it wouldn't be right for us to just continue the way that we're going at this present time, knowing that there are other people who are suffering, and overlook it?
Okay, and I'm gonna repeat this again. Being a Black woman raised in the South, Alabama, during the era of the late 50s and 60s, it angers me to see what's happening right now. It bothers me because I went through it. I know what it's like. Not being a judge, never been a judge, and to see a lot of things that's in the system now with, judges just giving Black and brown people longer sentences than other races, it's not fair. It is really not fair. And I've seen a lot since I've been the clerk of the court. I've seen a lot, and I've seen a lot of things that's been going on with the judges. And but I'm going to stay neutral out of that, because the clerk of the courts, and once again, we are collector of fees and fines, collections, passports, marriages. So I'm going to stick to the clerk of the court side because I'm not a judge.
Thank you, Brenda. Harold?
Yes, and now I have a concept of time. I do apologize, Carolina. I'm going to do a better job. Look, I've experienced this in so many ways and seen it happen in so many ways. It's a long-standing history. If you look at the background and the historical background of why law enforcement agencies were started, they were slave patrols, right? We have to find a way to hold law enforcement accountable. And we have to create mechanisms to ensure that they're being held accountable from both ends, both internally in law enforcement agencies, which the state attorney is not in charge of, but also basic inherent duties that I have as a state attorney. I truly believe, and it's been mentioned time and time again, we have to have robust implicit bias training programs in law enforcement agencies and state attorney's offices. But also we have to improve our hiring practices. We're putting law enforcement officers in the street to deal with complex Fourth Amendment issues that took me to go 3 years of law school to learn and get down, and took me some time as a prosecutor to fully get down. And so we have these law enforcement officers that are going through academy that aren't getting the extensive training that you need for complex Fourth Amendment issues that they deal with on a day-to-day. And they're constantly making these mistakes, but also a lot of them aren't mistakes. It's due to the bias and racism that they have in their heart. And so we have to have an honest conversation amongst our law enforcement brothers and sisters and within the various prosecution offices around the country. And I truly believe that's how we can combat this. That's a start.
I'm sorry, Wayne, if I could interrupt. So Harold, would you support the federalizing of murder by state actors?
No, I don't think I would. I truly believe that legislatures can make those determinations on their own. Although I wouldn't trust our legislature because it's a Republican legislature, but I truly believe that that's an issue that I think we should determine statewide as a state internally. And look at what we have in office now federally. I don't think I want them federally to make those decisions for us. I think that's something we could do on a state level. And I think we could do it better if we hire and if we retain and if we elect more progressive state attorneys, more progressive sheriffs throughout the state.
And how about the prosecution of bystanders, police bystanders for non-action?
Okay, yes, that's a complex issue. And I think here's the reason why. Then you run into an issue where you create more legal standards for bystanders in that. Right now, I would have to say no. I would have to look into it a little bit more because I truly believe that would take extensive debate by a state legislator to actually go through those issues, to do extensive studies on legal concepts, standing legal concepts. It'd be a radical change in our common law system and criminal law system, but I'd be open to it. I would truly be open to it. Yeah.
Did you all find the chat rooms helpful? Did you have conversations that you might not have had?
We did have conversations.
Absolutely.
Well, that's very good to know. And I'm sorry that we don't have the full panel tonight, because I think it would have lent itself even more to facilitating conversation. And that's what we were hoping for.
All right, got it. Threats of military intervention and lethal force against protesters have been suggested and executed by the president. Where we have seen police use of excessive force and military-style tactics, it has served only to provoke and escalate violence. Where there is an absence of police, we have seen Black organizers taking control of the protests and calling for an end to the destruction, even protecting property. We have also seen entire communities unite in self-defense, reclaiming the streets and the authority to self-police. Here in Broward, we attended extended hours of peaceful protest only to be harassed, provoked, beaten, and arrested upon the arrival of police. Do you condone the use of military tactics against unarmed civilian protesters? What alternatives, if any, do you suggest to end property destruction while still allowing for civil protests? What action should our police take? Should they be charged for violating civil rights and or excessive force? Should arrested protesters be prosecuted? We'll start with the state attorney, then the public defender, and then the clerk.
Yes, thank you. To get to the point, I think truly when you're dealing with law enforcement officers committing battery, criminal battery, I think they should be prosecuted, and they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent and expeditiously. I think the Fort Lauderdale police officer that assaulted or committed the battery against that protester a few weeks back, there was video. I don't think there should have been any hesitation. He should have been arrested and he should have been charged with battery and potentially for inciting a riot, because up until that point, the protests were peaceful. So we should hold them accountable in that regard. Secondly, we should not prosecute protesters. In my honest belief and opinion, coming from a family with grandparents who marched in the civil rights movement, who went to the march on Washington, I truly believe that you have a civic right to exercise civil disobedience. It's an inherent principle in this country's history. And I think we shouldn't arrest people for exercising their constitutional right to protest.
Thank you. Justin?
Yes, you have a constitutional right to protest. It's the First Amendment to the Constitution, and you should not be prosecuted for protesting. You should not be arrested for protesting. I don't know if you saw today, but Trump tweeted that, protesters are going to be basically met with force if they come out in Tulsa. That was the first thing he mentioned. He said it's not going to be like it's been in Minneapolis. And right there, he was threatening to violate the Constitution. We have a right to a peaceable assembly. The other part of the question, the first part, you were talking about the military intervening with protesters. Absolutely not. The military should not be intervening. We have our local police, and local police shouldn't be there to incite riots or to arrest protesters. They should be there to protect the crowd. And if a crime occurs, or then to intervene and stop that crime. But short of that, they shouldn't be inciting protesters or doing anything, or pushing protesters like we saw, or doing any other activity that's unlawful. They're there to protect and serve.
Thank you. Ruby?
Yeah, we need to get Trump out. His privileged mind is affecting the way that people think. Years ago, people have been, they may have thought something in their head, but then they let it pass. But with Trump, they're letting it manifest. And when they let it manifest, it's that inherent fear that some people, white people, may have had of Black people is appearing. And it's so blatant. And military intervention is just barbaric. It makes no sense that you're sending the military to attack your own people. How are you as president allowing this to happen that way? And yeah, the protests, they're provoked. Want to know what you can do in order to stop those actions and to stop the riots? Stop killing Black people. That's what you can do. Because and stop making it seem as if everything and everyone who's Black or people of color are animals, or forcing this to happen this way, because that's not what's going on. We have issues that we need to address in this country that they haven't been addressed, and it starts with the president, and we need to get him out.
Thank you, Ruby.
Sorry,
Paul.
it's so passionate. I'm so sorry.
Amen.
Well,
Oh, right, I forgot. We don't have Tom. Let me answer the first question that was asked, and that is whether or not I condone what's going on. My answer is simple: hell no. I'm embarrassed. I'm humiliated that this country has become what it's become. Ruby, the voters are going to make that decision hopefully in November. But in reality, look at where we are. Again, the lessons of history, how they come back. This type of action, whether it's, and it is barbaric, it's obscene, but go back in history and you will see that there are people that have always been tormented. Should we use the military? Absolutely not. There are laws that say you can't do it. Should they be gassing people? No. Should we allow peaceful protest? It was stated before, it's part of the First Amendment to the Constitution. It's part of every fabric of our Constitution and our way of life. The way to stop it is to get to the root. Is that going to be easy? Absolutely not. Is it going to take effort? Yeah. But when you look at the encouragement that comes from the very top, it just incites, excites, and creates more violence, more vengeance. And yes, looters should be prosecuted. That isn't part of a protest. And people should be left alone. But that's going to take an awful lot of work by an awful lot of people and a commitment to go with it.
Thank you. Brenda?
Okay. If there's a peaceful protesting going on, then let them protest because it's peaceful. There was a protest outside of the courthouse today as I was leaving, and they were escorted by BSO. They were peaceful. They were doing what was right. There was no issues, no problems. Excessive force by the police officers, and they're doing what they're doing, killing people of color, breaking the law themselves. Yes, they should be prosecuted as well to the full extent of the law. There's a lot of hidden racism within our judicial system, within our attorneys, within a whole lot of us. There's a lot of hidden racism. Unless it starts in the heart to remove that hate and that racism, you can say whatever you want. It starts in the heart. You have to move it from the heart in order to help other people on the outside, to help stop this racism, this hate, it's just, I get passionate when it comes to that because I love the color of my skin. I am just so happy to who God has created me to be. But for me to see this every day, and I have grandsons that's growing up, and it needs to stop. It really, really needs to stop. I'm just passionate about this.
Great, thank you, Brenda. Part of the question was, do you have any recommendations for how do we allow peaceful protests without the destruction of property? And I think that Brenda just said it when she was recalling the protest out from the courthouse, is that they were being escorted by BSO, which eliminates the need for city police or county police, and also deters the destructive element. So where the question was, what are the alternatives? And I think that might be a very productive suggestion. Does anybody else have any suggestion as how to allow this? Because we all know that there are actors involved who are seeking chaos and who are out to be destructive just by taking advantage of the situation. So how do we allow for protest but prevent the destruction? And I think that, go ahead, Errol.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Jamie. I apologize. I think this would be a great question for the sheriff's candidates, right? But I think what I can chime in, I think that's important. That's why we need to have constitutional officers that actually communicate with each other, that actually can develop that type of relationship. If you have a sheriff that's willing to stand up and say, hey, I might not agree with some of the concepts that they're protesting, but I agree with their First Amendment right to protest. Let's make sure that they're in a safe environment where they can exercise their constitutional right and their frustrations. Then they can call me, the state attorney, and say, Harold, in the event that something happens and one of my law enforcement officers, hey, Ruby, I wish I could help you over there. I see you.
Gotta stay green.
At least you could have an understanding from my office that we won't prosecute those people, certain people. Or, you know, if there are destructive elements to that and something escalates, my prosecutors would be instructed to kind of look at it even-handedly and not, you know, be so rough-handed with some of the protesters that may have gotten out of hand. I think it's important that we have those relationships and those communications there, those lines of communications.
What I would like to add to that note is that in the last 2 weeks of our series, we invited candidates, incumbents, and their challengers. So any incumbent for House or state for Congress. Now, we haven't got a response from the incumbents, but we certainly have gotten responses from their challengers, because we can talk till we're blue in the face. If we don't have people willing to write the legislation, it's really meaningless. So I want you to know, and I want everybody else to know, that we are going to have candidates for House and state Congress to join us in the last 2 weeks. Did anybody want to add something to this before we move on?
Well,
Yeah, just
one last
briefly.
thing. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ruby.
Ruby.
I was just going to say, I totally agree with Harold. We need to work together. I've been a part of quite a few protests, and I can tell you that we've been escorted by police. Hasn't been a problem. There are some situations where there have been provokers, people who are not a part of the peaceful protests that are, provoking the situation. And I can tell you that when it comes to, we had a march 2 weeks ago at the courthouse for attorneys. No one for BSO or Fort Lauderdale showed up and harassed us or anything, escorted us or anything. So that just goes to show you we have that First Amendment right. They just want to exercise it on the public. They want to make sure that the public's not doing something that they're not doing. But when it was a group of lawyers who know their rights, they didn't bother us at all.
Right.
And I will say, before the forum today, I did attend the protest downtown, and Fort Lauderdale police, they did escort them from the start point all the way through. So that was committed by the Fort Lauderdale Police Department.
Paul, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted
Quickly.
to follow up. Yes, Ruby and Harold, I wanted to follow up. Harold, with regard to people knowing the Constitution, I think it is absolutely imperative that those of us that hold office at any single level, from the bottom to the top, actually have an understanding and actually read the Constitution and understand what it means. And Ruby, and this goes back to one of the other questions, it's hard for peaceful protesters when they are being harassed over and over to sometimes avoid engaging. If we learn to keep our own self-control, and I don't blame it, protest is a part of this country. And again, it's going to require all of us to work very hard.
And can I just add one simple thing? Not engaging with police officers is a part of the script that they give us when we protest, especially for Black Lives Matter. So there's a whole script they follow and to the T, So
All right.
Pick up your sign.
Okay. Our criminal justice system was founded on the assumption of innocence, yet the demand for cash bail implies guilt. We know that cash bail disproportionately and unfairly affects Black, brown, and poor people. People spend months, sometimes a year in jail before even being charged with a crime, simply because they cannot afford to post a $500 bail. Statistics show that a person who spends even 2 days in jail is 3 times more likely to be arrested before trial. Rearrested before trial. Do you support the elimination of cash bail altogether? If so, how would you go about eliminating it? If not, how would you reform it so that the system does not penalize Black, brown, and poor people? We'll start with the public defender, then to the clerk and the state attorney.
So we have a system that says that you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but that didn't apply to people of color. That didn't apply to people who are poor. We know that these disparities and this disproportionate sentencing practices has been happening forever and ever and ever. I do think that we should eliminate cash bail. We have pretrial services where people can even have GPS monitors. In fact, other states like New Jersey don't even have the cash bail system. And they've been, progressing, we need to eliminate it. It makes no sense because the system that we have now cares more about you if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. And we have poor people who are just sitting in jail, and we as taxpayers are paying $146 per day per person that's sitting in that custody for simple things like trespasses for sleeping on a park bench, you know, and their bonds are $25, but we are paying $146 per day for that person to sit in for however long, knowing that they can't afford to get out on $25. So we need to go ahead and eliminate it, and we can reinforce it with pretrial services and other types of programs.
Wayne, everything that you said at the beginning is what I've been preaching since I started my campaign back in November. The purpose of cash bail is to ensure that the person, per the statute, I'm saying, 903.046, the purpose is to ensure the appearance in court and to protect the community from unreasonable danger from the criminal defendant. But studies have shown that whether or not you have the cash for bail doesn't correlate with whether or not you show up or whether you reoffend. But what does correlate is that people that spend a few days in jail then find themselves in a position where they get arrested again. When they're held in bail, they lose, or they can lose, their job, their home, their children. They could get kicked out of school. All the things that hold somebody's life together can be gone for someone that's presumed innocent because they can't afford the cash for bail. Cash bail is discriminatory on its face. It just asks, do you have the right amount of money? So I am all for the elimination of cash bail. I know there are many other ways, successful ways of handling this issue that are being used throughout the country, such that Ruby mentioned pretrial services. There are places where they do a risk assessment that is objective, where they look at a number of factors. What charge you're facing, what previous charges you're facing. Were you facing a charge when you picked up this charge? Were you previously convicted of offense? Were you convicted of a violent offense? Did you show up for court previously on any other cases? And then determine if the person, where they could be released. And then you can have them released on their own recognizance or released with restrictions. And then in the most serious of cases, held pre-trial and detention.
Thank you. Brenda? Thank you.
I'm not a part of the public defenders or part of the judicial side of it in reference to the bond part of it, but I am against it. There are other things that can be done, like pre-trial or, ROR. They can wear ankle monitors because, like Ruby said, there are a lot of Black and brown people that are not capable of paying for their bail, and they have to sit there. So unless it's a hard crime that they have to keep them in, murderers, child molesters, human traffickers, or whatever, okay, yes, let them stay in there. Don't even give them bonds at all. But those who, just going around, stealing a little food because they're hungry or other little things that doesn't really require bail, I am totally against it, and it needs to be taken away.
Thank you. Paul?
I can just ask for a clarification because I just want to make sure that I heard it right. Taking what away? Getting rid of the bonds?
Yeah, ending cash bail.
Okay. First of all, I've never believed that you throw out the baby with the bathwater. Having sat for as many years as I did, being in magistrates and understanding, the idea that somebody who was walking with their belongings in a shopping cart from Publix and they're being arrested and they're being held in jail is obscene. The same way when they're looking for food. The homeless really pay a price. We have a bond schedule. That bond schedule seriously has to be reviewed. There are so many offenses on there that I believe the elimination of $25, $50, $100 bonds can be accomplished. And this goes right back to what I started from in the beginning. This is a matter of cooperation between all the stakeholders. Should we keep people that are charged with robbery and let them go? That depends on the nature of the crime. We do have pre-trial services. They do an investigation and background, and their responsibility is to inform the court at magistrates whether or not they're a risk or they're not. Now, a person with a $25 bond, in my opinion, can never be a risk. Because then what they do is they put them out at the street on 2 o'clock in the morning and they've got no place to go, so they rearrest them. It's absurd. but this is something that needs to be reformed. And reformation comes again with cooperation and input from stakeholders. And quite honestly, I think it's got to be changed legislatively as well, because they're the ones that empower it. So I
Thank
wouldn't
you.
eliminate it in total. I would
All right.
reform it.
Thank you, Paul. Harold, I'm very sorry I skipped over you, correct?
No worries. Yeah,
Go
no,
for
it's
it. All
fine.
right.
It's fine,
Thank you.
Jamie. It's fine. I have a two-part answer to that. Right now, currently, I truly believe that we shouldn't be issuing cash bond for low-level offenses, non-violent offenses, excuse me. Secondly, I am for reform of the system to totally eradicate cash bail. And that's going to take a strong state attorney and strong public defender to both go up to Tallahassee and advocate for this change both statutorily. I think we should move to a system that the District of Columbia has. And I think Josh alluded to it. There's other districts that also do this as well. A pretrial risk assessment program. It essentially assesses the defendant's likelihood to appear to court. And also it factors in the nature of the crime, whether it's a violent nature crime or the victim's rights. As we know, we're in the state of Florida. Victims have a constitutional right to be heard and seen through every stage of the prosecutorial process.
Mm-hmm.
So my pretrial risk assessment program would look at all of those factors and we make a determination. It's to determine someone's likelihood to appear to court. I'd also submit to everyone here that if we did a pretrial risk assessment program, it would have probably an 89% appearance rate. And DC has about an 89 to 90% appearance rate. And I'd venture to say that that's actually probably better than Broward County's appearance rate on the current cash bail system. And so I truly believe that we can reform it. We just need strong leaders and constitutional officers to advocate for this change and be willing to make the change.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. And I hope that you found this format, although a little challenging because we're new at it, that it might have been more conducive to actually promoting reform than the typical form. But what I would like to do is give every candidate an opportunity to wrap it up, and introduce themselves again and say why they're the best candidate for the job. And if we have an opportunity in a couple of weeks to rejoin, I'll invite you all back again. But I do want to say thank you again for joining us, and let everybody out there watching know that our next event is going to be July 10th. And we do have confirmation from all 4 offices, in addition to a couple of candidates for House and state and Congress. So please be sure to join us on the 10th, and then also on the 17th and the 24th of July. So let's go ahead and start with Brenda and go ahead and wrap it up. Tell us why you're running and why we should vote with you, and then we'll go through the offices. You guys just jump in when you can, and thank you again.
Thank you once again for allowing me to be on this panel with you guys. My name is Brenda Foreman. I am the incumbent. This is my first term. August 18th, I'm asking each and every one of you to re-elect me as your clerk of the court. People can defame the name, but they cannot destroy my character. I have done what needed to be done for the clerk's office. I have made the changes that I promised that I would have done the first time that I ran. I am the clerk that works. I don't hold my hand. I don't take vacation times, maybe once or twice a year. I don't take away from the clerk's office. I don't do things that is not in the right mind of doing what needs to be done for the clerk's office. So I just need everyone to just look at the work that I have done and get your facts checked straight without listening to something that is not true. Once again, I'm Brenda Foreman, running for the Broward County Clerks of Court. I am the incumbent, and I just need you to re-elect me to my seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Mr. Backman?
Thank you. And again, thank you to all of you that have participated, and thank you, Jamie. This is very unique, and I've enjoyed the interaction. I'm running for clerk of courts. Leadership takes courage. COVID has taught us we have to start looking at new, innovative, creative ways of doing business. We have to have our professionals. We have to be accountable. We have to be transparent. And of course, we have to leave lead by integrity, lead with integrity, honesty, and decisiveness, and be organized. The reality is it's time. It's time for a change, and it's time to move into the 21st and a half century. And my name is Paul Backman. I am running for Clerk of Courts, Backman 2020. And I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Paul. Ruby?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruby Lenora Green. I am running to be your Broward County Public Defender. This is my first time running. I actually work at the Public Defender's Office, and I am really wanting to create a criminal justice system that works for us all. And that means providing a progressive, holistic approach at the Broward County Public Defender's Office, making sure that our clients are not stuck in that revolving door of recidivism. They have access to jobs. They have access to housing. They have access to schooling. They have access to more substance abuse and mental health treatment programs. And that will reduce the recidivism that we are currently facing. We need to also boost our office morale. We need more funding at the Public Defender's Office. We need to promote criminal justice reform at the Public Defender's Office. That means going to Tallahassee and fighting with the legislature, making sure that they understand that there are sentencing disparities, make sure that they understand that minimum mandatories or mandatory minimums are affecting people's lives. So if you want to change to be seen, make sure that you're focusing on someone who is going to be creating new innovative ways of thinking, and that's me. Vote green for change to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Harold?
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Broward Progressive Caucus, for having me. Thank you, Mr. Rollins, for hosting this and moderating it. You know, my grandmother passed away, I believe, 10 years ago last week. And so she's been on my mind heavy. She was a firecracker. She was a progressive. She marched in the movement with my grandfather. And something that she always said, and I actually said this in a forum, she would always say, baby, but for God, in the Baptist tradition. And but for God, I could have been Ahmaud Arbery. But for God, I could have been Breonna Taylor. But for God, I could have been George Floyd. I'm running for state attorney because I truly believe that I'm the most qualified person to initiate ground level criminal justice reform. We need a state attorney that understands the demographics that we serve here in Broward County, that can administer justice even-handedly. I truly believe that we can reform the system, but we need a strong state attorney that can initiate that. I want everyone to check out my website, haroldpryor.com. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them. We have an opportunity to change this system for the better. And it's time that we have a state attorney's office and leaders that are reflective of the communities that they serve. My name's Harold Pryor. I'm ready to be your next state attorney. Let's make history, and thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Justin, finish this off.
Okay, thanks. So I'm a prosecutor. Not only that, I'm a progressive prosecutor. I prosecute police brutality. The last officer I prosecuted got 10 years in prison. We know as a criminal justice system now how to take a case to trial, how to convict someone, how to send them to prison. What we got to do now is figure out how to better handle those that come into the system that suffer with mental health issues, that suffer from substance addiction, from poverty, and help them get on the path to rehabilitation. Most people that enter the criminal justice system will be released at some point. We need to focus on serving justice, but also putting offenders in a position to get back into mainstream society after their case is over, so that they don't keep cycling through the criminal justice system. My goal is to take people from being tax burdens to taxpayers. I've been a prosecutor since 2013. I've never left a victim behind. I always fight to the end for justice for my victims. I'm looking to be a prosecutor for victims, society, and defendants. 30 seconds, gotcha. So my goal is to get justice while not setting offenders up for a lifetime of cycling through incarceration and poverty, or incarceration and substance abuse. I plan to rebuild trust with the community. I'm the only candidate that's currently holding police accountable for their misconduct. And I'll make that a priority during my administration. When police break the law, they break the trust of the community. And to repair that trust, they need to be held accountable. I'm the only candidate that served in 2 different prosecutors' offices, in 2 different jurisdictions. I know the criminal justice system, and I know how it should be changed. And if you elect me, I will change it. Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you so much, candidates. Mr. Rollins, do you have anything to say before you leave us?
No, Jamie, just thank you. I love the platform and allowing the space for everyone to share. And, I wish everybody well. I mean, we're facing real tough times, but with those tough times, there's opportunities. And, with the passage of Amendment 4 and now 1.4 million, people being able to vote in this election, folks are registering, not at the numbers we'd like, but we're going to get there. We can cover most gaps in most races. And, we're going to get people out. I've worked with Desmond. I toured with Desmond. We're going to make some serious efforts going into November to make sure that, things change. To get to the White House, you got to go through Florida. And we cover the gap.
Great. Thank you so much for being here tonight. You've been awesome, and the integrity you brought to the moderator position was fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you, candidates.
Thank you.
And everybody who's been watching, please be sure to return on July 10th. And good luck to all of you the rest of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Good night, Jamie.
Good night.
Good night.
Good job, boy.
Nice meeting you, Wayne.
Here's a story.
Good night.